Hi, I'm David, a content creator from Germany, and with this video I'm going to save you some time and money by telling you 3 things that you can't learn in any online course, in case you think that you just haven't found the right course yet. The 3 things are motivation, inspiration, and happiness. In the next few minutes I will explain why you can't learn these things in any course and also how you can experience them instead. Let's go!
3 things you can't learn in any online course.
Okay, in the interest of full disclosure, I am a huge fan of online courses myself, be it via Brilliant, Skillshare, LinkedIn Learning or the German language Zeitakademie. I can spend hours, days and weeks on online courses, love it. I also recently tried to apply for a scholarship to the Part-Time YouTuber Academy, but that didn't work out. First, because my application was not very carefully crafted, I guess. And on the other hand, there were applications from much more dedicated creators who therefore naturally deserved it much more than I did. Now, anyway, why are motivation, inspiration and happiness 3 things that you can't learn in any online course? Let me elaborate. To do that, we need to understand that there are at least 4 kinds of knowledge. Knowing what, knowing why, knowing how and knowing where. That is where the sources of our knowledge are. I cannot go into this division of knowledge in more detail here, nor do I need to. Because in which of these areas does motivation fall? Right, into none of them. Because motivation is more like a feeling, isn't it? A certain mood. Well, it may be, but above all, motivation is, quite simply, a myth. That honestly is something that you can learn in an online course, such as Ali Abdaal's Skillshare class on productivity and likewise on the blog Wisdomination. Nonetheless, motivation itself is not something that you can learn in any online course, at least not directly. Motivation is something that happens when you apply what you have learned and get feedback on it. So whenever you're looking for a way to learn motivation, you should instead look for a way to learn discipline, self-discipline. Because only when you have the discipline to make a start and apply what you have learned and thus finally take action, will you experience reaction and response. And that is where motivation comes from. Having discipline, making a start, getting feedback. Yes, but what if the feedback is bad, you may ask? Like really bad. It's simple. Distinguish useless criticism from helpful criticism, learn from it, apply that, and stay on task. Continue with discipline. That's the only way you will get better at what you do. And that's how feedback gets better as well, eventually. Here is a fitting quote on getting started by the German poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, translated quite freely by the, I think, Irishman John Anston.
What you can do, or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power and magic in it. Only engage and then the mind grows heated. Begin it and the work will be completed.
In the original, was heute nicht geschieht, ist morgen nicht getan. Und keinen Tag soll man verpassen. Das Mögliche soll der Entschluss beherzt sogleich am Schopfe fassen. Er will es dann nicht fahren lassen und wirket weiter, weil muss. As I said, it was translated very freely. The English version is rather inspired by Goethe. Speaking of inspiration. Well, if that wasn't a poetic segue. Inspiration is commonly thought of as that moment of enlightenment that brings the sparking idea to creative people, and for which they supposedly have to wait until the muse kisses them. Well, understood this way, inspiration is something that you cannot learn in any course. That is not because of inspiration itself, but because of the widespread but incorrect understanding of it. Inspiration is not something you wait for, inspiration is something you strive for. Inspiration is like a fishing net that you use to catch ideas. The bigger, the better. If you're just holding a single fishing line in the water, it can take a long time indeed for an idea to emerge. So how do you knit yourself such a net of inspiration? It's simple. Again, by engaging with other people's ideas, by absorbing content, by emerging into the world of human culture. And then, I'm repeating myself, by making a start, by putting in the work. There's another quote from the writer William Somerset Maugham, known for Of Human Bondage and many other works. He once said,
"I write only when inspiration strikes. Fortunately, it strikes every morning at 9 o'clock sharp."
Inspiration, like motivation, is a matter of discipline. If you want to write a blog or novel, write. If you want to learn to draw, grab a pen and paper, get to it. If you want to learn a language, read, listen, speak, and connect with other speakers of that language. And if you don't know what you want, do something, anything. Figure it out by trying things out. Last but not least, happiness. Well, guess how you get to that? You're not going to learn how to be happy by taking courses or by watching silly videos like this one. Happiness is even less of a skill than motivation or inspiration. It's a state of mind. And it's a byproduct, because this state of mind only occurs, if at all, when you are doing things that you are good at, or that you are getting good at, or that you simply love doing. The German word for happiness is Glück. But in German, of all languages, this otherwise inventive, wordy language, the language of great philosophers, we have this one word with three very different meanings. The German word Glück can mean luck as well as happiness as well as success. That we cannot learn to have luck, that is probably clear to everyone. Sometimes we have luck, sometimes we have bad luck, that's life, right? But also success is something for which there is no guarantee. We may strive for it, but by doing so we only have a few successful role models in mind and are blind for the millions who have tried without success. It's nevertheless obvious to us that we increase our chances of success by trying. And in the same way, we increase our chances of having luck by being active, by taking action, and thus offering luck a greater surface to stick to us, metaphorically speaking. That success eventually leads to happiness is probably the best known and yet most common fallacy we humans constantly fall for, despite knowing better. Instead, it would be wiser to take a path that makes us happy as it is, regardless of whether we ever reach the goal. In other words, there is no path to happiness. It's a matter of finding a path of happiness for yourself. So in that sense, happiness is not something that you can learn in courses, for example, but something that you can only look for. Not in test environments or under laboratory conditions, so to speak, but in real life. Well, how do you look for such a path of happiness? If you are unhappy, I once was told, there are only two options anyway. So it would have to be one of these two, I suppose. First, change your circumstances. And if that's not possible, change your attitude towards those circumstances. Of course, that is easier said than done. And maybe it's not the right approach at all to pay so much attention to happiness itself. Let's remember that happiness is merely a byproduct. To find it, our search should rather be for the actual product. A product is something of value, in this case coming from you. A value created by you and somehow returning to you. So one possible question to get started is, what product, or speaking a little less marketing-wise, what kind of value do you have to offer?
If you are a social, outgoing person, good relationships and connections are the product of what you do. With every favor you do, every good conversation you have, you strengthen those connections. And with that, you're about to start down one possible path of happiness. If you are a creative person, it is the work of your mind and hands with which you can create something valuable. Perhaps a contribution to education, entertainment, art, something that makes life more beautiful, richer, more exciting. Of course, you won't always experience happiness right away. Like motivation, it sometimes takes a while to sink in. Discipline always includes a certain amount of patience.
In the end, yeah, I guess I have to admit this video is just a very elaborate way to tell you and me to go out and socialize, or to sit down and get to work, to start with your art, project, enterprise, whatever is most in line with your personality. But stop putting false hope in online courses or workshops or wasting time with videos like this one. Unless you are not looking for motivation, inspiration and happiness and all that jazz, but for practical tips on how to create digital content as something of value, well, if that's the case, then I've got a lot more in store for you in future videos. So if you want to learn content creation, then please signal me by giving this video a thumbs up. Also, even if you just liked it, and make sure you subscribe to this brand new channel so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, see you next time. Finally, a quick word about the PTYA, so as not to leave a wrong impression. Such programs are, of course, anything but useless. As I said, I'm a big fan of online courses myself. The reason why I applied for a scholarship was also not that this particular course didn't seem worth the money to me. But since it's a course with a high percentage of live sessions and I am once again becoming a father at some point in the next few weeks or days, my time and financial priorities are naturally with my family right now, as most of the time. But that shouldn't stop me from starting something new here, so see you soon.